A tenant faces 60 days in jail because she didn't use her stimulus check to pay back rent to her landlord. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have a great article for you today, and it's going to go over one judge who just isn't putting up with a tenant who isn't paying the back rent. But before I get into this article, let me ask you to hit that subscribe button and that like button and maybe leave a comment down below so I can keep bringing you great articles about the eviction moratorium and other news relating to landlords. So this article comes to us from WisconsinExaminer.com, and it says, Oneida County judge threatens to jail a woman for not spending her stimulus check on rent. A 22-year-old single mother in Oneida County faces 60 days in jail for contempt of court because she didn't spend her stimulus check on back rent or give her debit card to her landlord's lawyer after she was ordered to do so by a judge. The woman, Cassandra Beatty, has been fighting an eviction for months. Her lawyers and experts on housing law see the actions of Oneida County Judge Patrick O'Melia probably weren't legal, adding that they constitute a debtor's prison. Well, here's the thing. The judge is the one who makes the decision in these cases, and the judge says that if you are going to get this stimulus check you need and you owe this landlord money, you need to give that stimulus money to your landlord, okay? You can't live in their property for free. And I'm glad that at least this judge here in Wisconsin is doing what I believe should be done all over the country. Through most of the process, like many Wisconsinites facing eviction, she did not have legal representation. This meant she was in court hearings as O'Melia and the landlord's attorney talked over, about, and to her while she struggled to keep up. At every phase, O'Melia got more and more frustrated with her, she and her lawyer say. It was stressful. It seemed like any time I said anything, they thought like I was being disorderly or didn't care, Beatty says. They didn't understand that I wasn't doing it to go against them. Well, here's the thing, okay? Most judges, they act very professionally, and 22-year-old person comes in the court and they think that they can talk to a judge like, you know, they're anyone on the street. No, the judge is in charge of the courtroom, okay? I'm a law enforcement officer. I go into courtrooms and, you know, you have to respect what the judge, you know, the way they run things. And if you act disrespectful, then the judge will hold you in contempt of court. If the judge makes a decision, you do what the judge's decision says. If you want to file a complaint later, do that, but you can't just not do it and then expect, you know, everything to go right and say, oh, it isn't fair. No, it is fair, okay? These judges, they have a lot of latitude in the decisions they make. And in this case, if you owed money and you were receiving this stimulus check, then you need to give that money to your landlord because you owe your landlord that money. Beatty had been living in a $755 a month two-bedroom apartment in Rhinelander with her boyfriend and 2-year-old son at the beginning of the pandemic. Beatty and her boyfriend broke up and she fell behind on rent, but believed she was protected by the CDC eviction moratorium. From falling behind on her rent to the contempt orders, each setback was an example of problems caused by poverty compounding on themselves in a process that ended with an annoyed judge punishing her for her inability to pay, experts say. Yeah, who are these experts? You know, she broke up with her boyfriend. She couldn't make the rent on her own. She should have just attempted to move out. Why was she trying to stay there and knowing that she couldn't afford that place, okay? Having two incomes to pay for your rent is a lot easier than having one income, and you trying to go at it alone as a single mom when you don't make enough money. It doesn't matter what your personal circumstances are. You wrote a contract saying that you agreed to pay this amount of money. The landlord shouldn't be your social welfare provider, and that's my opinion. That's the way this judge sees it as well, obviously, because otherwise they wouldn't have made that decision, okay? This, to me, has an awful underpinning that seems like this is happening because the person is being treated differently because they're low income. Mitch, a professor at the UW-Madison School of Law who teaches tenant law, says, it's not just an issue that's the result of poverty. Poverty is causing these issues. Does it matter what the reason is, okay? Simply put, the property owner deserves to be paid the money that they are owed. Yes, this person is in poverty, but it is not the fault of the landlord that, okay, the landlord doesn't have to provide free housing to every single person who's in poverty. That's a ridiculous thing to even talk about. And sitting here talking about the poverty and the causes of poverty and everything about, like, no, that's not the landlord's issue, okay? If you're worried about social programs, help this girl sign up so she can get on Section 8 or something, or go talk to some government people or charities or somebody who can actually help her. But don't expect the landlord to pull money out of their own personal pocket to house this lady. That's just ridiculous. The landlord's running a business. You don't expect a grocery store to provide free groceries to people. No, you can't expect more from a landlord. The CDC moratorium, according to one of Beatty's lawyers, Kristen Slansky, includes vague language that says tenants must pay as much as they can. In most other eviction cases since the moratorium was instituted, the amount that can be paid has primarily been left up to the tenant, who best understands her own bills and finances, Slansky says. But at a hearing in February, in which Beatty had no legal representation, O'Melia sided with the landlord and lifted the stay on the eviction. Everybody has been proceeding as if the tenant is the one to make that decision, Slansky says. Where does partial rent fall on my list of priorities between keeping my car running, cell phone going, and kids fed? Well, I'm going to stop. I'm not even going to read the rest of this paragraph. I'll tell you where that goes, okay? You're talking about housing for your kids. That's actually more important than keeping your car running and keeping your cell phone going. I mean, you're just a joke at this point. You're saying, I can pay my cell phone bill, but I can't pay for housing for my kids? I mean, come on. You need to get your priorities straight, lady. At the end of the day, you've got $20 left, and you have to decide to give that $20 to your landlord, who has already filed an eviction against you, or spend it on your cell phone as you're looking for a new job. In April, Beatty was in court, again without legal representation. At this hearing, O'Melia ordered her not to spend her stimulus check or any tax refunds. When Beatty, who lives below the poverty line, received her stimulus check, she spent it on, quote, necessities. Yeah. I bet she doesn't have a detailed list of the necessities she spent it on. I would bet money that a lot of the necessities that she's claiming she spent it on weren't actually necessities at all. The judge gave her an order to, let me see what it says here exactly. It says, order her not to spend her stimulus check or any tax refunds. Okay, so if the judge says that, that means that you have to do what the judge says. I don't care what you think. Okay, you need to do what the judge says, or you're going to be held in contempt. And that's exactly what it looks like is going to happen in this case. So, yeah, I mean, this is a pretty pro-tenant article, and I really don't like articles like this because it keeps going into the fact that she doesn't have a lawyer, okay? But here's the thing. If a landlord has a lawyer, that's because they had to pay for it out of their own pocket. It's not like somebody provided a free lawyer to the landlord. And a lot of landlords, especially small ones, they will go in and represent themselves. The difference is, though, that they will go in there and they will show receipts, they will show paperwork, they will show contracts to the judge. And if you go in there and you don't have your affairs in order, then you're not going to be able to represent yourself. So, I mean, she sounds like a pretty immature 22-year-old. I mean, you're going to be pretty immature, but you can't expect for the landlord to pay for your housing. I'll say it again. You cannot expect the landlord to be your homeless shelter. You can't just stay somewhere for free. Life doesn't work that way. The stimulus checks from the federal government, sent multiple times since the pandemic began, greatly reduced material hardships for low-income families, a recent report from the University of Michigan found. But for Beatty, it also caused stress. It helped a lot, but it caused a lot more stress than it was really worth, she says. In early May, she was again hauled into court, where O'Melia found her in contempt because she'd spent the stimulus money. In order to avoid 60 days in jail, she would have to give the landlord's lawyer her debit card within 24 hours of receiving her tax refund. Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard of it going that far before, but that's pretty interesting. But hey, that's the judge right there. Slansky and Mitch find this order especially strange. The landlord doesn't have the PIN and therefore can't access the account. And if the goal is to prevent Beatty from spending the money, she would just go to the bank and get a paper check or withdraw cash. Beatty did not follow this order either, but called Judicare, a legal services clinic in northern Wisconsin. At this point, Slonsky and another lawyer, Samuel Hutchinson, took on the case, but their backs were against the wall because of the timing. Yeah, so you didn't follow the judge's order, and then you call a lawyer? Oh, are you kidding me? Okay, you're doing everything out of order. You're doing everything wrong, and there's probably not much that these lawyers will be able to do for you, okay? So if you want to do time in jail for contempt of court, you just keep going and doing this playing this game. Otherwise, you need to start listening to what this judge says. Wisconsin state law exempts certain funds from being taken in a court judgment. If a person's income is less than the federal poverty limit, wages can't be garnished. If a person has less than $5,000 across all personal bank accounts, that money can't be touched. But even though Slonsky and Hutchinson thought O'Melia had violated this law, or at least found a back door around it, the time limit of 15 days to file an appeal had already passed. Wow. Yeah, this just sounds like a case of somebody who is pushing everything. They're pushing the landlord to give them free housing, pushing the judge, not paying attention to their rules. I mean, what can I say? But this whole situation could have been avoided if there was no eviction moratorium and they could have just gotten this lady out of the house in the first place, okay? She obviously can't afford to actually live there after she broke up with her boyfriend, so I don't know what she's trying to do other than drag it out and force the landlord into financial distress, because there's no positive solution to this problem. Even if the eviction moratorium goes on, her debt will continue to accrue and she will be in an even worse situation, okay? So yeah, that's pretty much sums up this article, and all I can say is, this lady better get her act together or she's going to end up in jail.